Thank you all for having us here today. It's great to be with you. It's really nice to have my wife with me here. She doesn't get to travel around with me. She drove back today from California with her 5 kids in the back of a Suburban from, what was the temperature this morning? 69 back to 149. And you got to admire a wife who's much prettier, much better looking than you are, smarter than you are, who will actually do that just to make you feel good. So thank you, Nicole. It's exciting to be in this race. I'm a businessman. I'm not a career politician. This is the first office I've run for, and I think that's the best quality I have going for me right now. How well have these career politicians done for us? It's great that we have business people jumping into office, like Treasurer Doug Ducey. I'll give you some more kudos there, Doug. We're glad you're there. You've turned things around. That's what we need right now in Washington, D.C. We don't need career politicians. We need outsiders. We need business people. We need people who understand what it's like to have a balanced budget. Understand what it's like to make payroll. Understand what it's like to make tough choices. Who understand what it's like to live in a tough economy. When you're a career politician and never had a job in the private sector, you don't understand that. Amen. You can write nice papers, you can give nice speeches, you can talk a lot, but you don't understand it. And right now, we need people who understand and are willing to get the job done. The next thing I think we need are outsiders. We don't need people who bring Washington, D.C. to Arizona. We don't need people who bring Washington, D.C. money and are captive to Washington, D.C. special interests, that have Washington, D.C. on their mind. They're a creature of Washington, D.C. That's what's gotten us into the trouble we're in right now. We need people who are willing to go back to Washington, D.C. and change the culture and the mentality there. And you can't do that if your money and your support comes, the majority of it, from Washington, D.C. We need outsiders more than ever. And the third thing I think we need are consistent, reliable conservatives. This is the greatest event in the Valley. I got to tell you, this is where the Republican Party is headed. This is optimism. That's what this is about. And in order to get that, continue to have that grow, we need people who go back to Washington, D.C. and get the federal government out of the way and get jobs and the economy going back here. We don't need people who flip-flop on important issues like immigration and hamstring our state because they haven't done anything for a decade on immigration, because they've sat there and watched it happen and proposed amnesty. We need people who understand. You've got to secure the border and then move on. We need people who don't flip-flop on taxes. I've signed a pledge not to raise taxes. You've all seen the commercial, the Washington, D.C. commercial with the imposter, right? Yeah. You do watch TV. There's a big difference between a referendum proposed by the Republican-led state legislature that has a that is being led by the way, by a gentleman who's Speaker of the House at the time named Jake Flake, that goes to the ballot for the people to extend a 20-year tax in order to build infrastructure. I don't know how I'm responsible for that tax, being as I was in business, but there's a big difference between that and then writing a bill that's an energy tax that increases the cost $1,000 per family on carbon emissions, and saying, oh well, this tax is going to be tax neutral, it'll go, the people will send it to Washington, D.C. and then we'll send it back home. That's not what we need right now. We need common sense people who understand that doesn't build this economy. We need to grow. And the final thing I think we need are Arizona-focused senators. Not people who are more focused on Cuba or focused on other nations, and inconsistent, who focus on the issues that people face here at home. That's the kind of senator I hope to be. I'm very optimistic. This is the greatest state in the union. This is the greatest place to be. I have 5 kids, been married to Nicole 20 years, and I am really excited about the opportunities for my kids. As long as we don't continue to send the same people back into government who have messed it up in the first place. There's a saying in business: you can't be a successful member of a failed organization. I say again, you can't be a successful member of a failed organization. And nothing ought to disqualify someone more for office than having lied several times, than having flip-flopped on issues, than being captive to Washington, D.C., and never having had a job in the private sector. We don't need that. If that's the person you want for the U.S. Senate, I'm not your guy. If you want a businessman, an outsider, and a consistent, reliable conservative, I am your guy. Thank you for having me here today. Charles, thank you. George, it's great to be with you. And we've closed the polls now. We were down 60 points. The last public poll was a couple weeks ago that we were down 12 points. And so we're closing the gap. This is winnable. This is a horse race. And looking forward to winning this one. Thank you.